follow the old things and all. So they can use it in their lifetime according to their capacity, capabilities and all. So like how we used to mug up, how we used to do, no need to do like that.
No,
They can
even
do it
we
in
not
their
have done that, right? But somehow we are surviving. Though we mucked up and we sort of grew up that way. And another reason which one of my favorite thought leaders, Ken Robinson, he's advocate for nurturing creativity, and he talks about how computers have taken over pretty much every job in the world that were sort of like a travel agent probably came to our house when we were children to book, take our requirements and book tickets. Now we can just do it on the internet. Even accounting, there used to be a full-time accountant in any company, however small the company was, now the computers can do it. So what is it that we humans can do which computers cannot do? The original thinking, right? That's something we haven't figured out as yet, how to make computers think original thoughts. We have to program those things into the computer. So for our children to even survive or even maybe get a job or even to solve problems in this complex world, they have to be creative. There is no other way. And nurturing creativity is probably one of the most important things we can do as parents and teachers. Okay? So it's very difficult to actually figure out how creativity comes by, because first of all, brain is complex and creativity is something that okay, what is creativity? It has to be something useful. You cannot just create something and leave it to the world to decide how useful it is. But to create something useful and to think innovatively, there is a certain process or something that takes place in the brain, and I don't think anyone has understood it perfectly how that happens. But there is a scientist, his name is Csikszentmihalyi. He actually went and studied about 100 creative people in the world. People middle level Cs, he calls it, mid Cs, he calls it. By that he means middle level creators. For example, top managers in different companies who have actually built the company to a very big success and things like that. And he tried to interview them many times, observe them many times, and he came across some 10 or 12 different traits in these people which were common and which he believes leads to creativity. 10 or 12 different traits or habits or something that they do on a daily basis. Okay? So, one is the idea of functional fixedness. Have you heard of it? Fixedness. Okay. So the reason I gave this project was as hairy as the mane of a lion, right? So different people have used different kinds of pieces to represent the hair of the hair. For example, this group has used this vertical stuff. That group has actually imagined this to be the hair. This one, right? Yes. This yellow piece, the fence piece, as the hair. See, if you look at just this piece, some people, for me it just looks like a fence, a piece of a fence around a house. But this group actually came up with the idea that it represents hair somehow. And that group actually used something else. And so the idea is, like, when you look at something, we should not be actually thinking we should not be actually thinking about that piece as a fixed function. Okay? We should be open to lots of ideas. So a friend of mine was actually talking about his son, a 3-year-old son. The friend was actually ironing his clothes to go to work, and the son, 3-year-old son, he looked at the iron box and said, "Appa, it looks like a plane, aeroplane." So what is it that we generally do? At least when I was growing up, our elders, they were quite, I mean, it was quite an authoritarian culture then, right? Kannada, I hope. Enough, that's iron box. That's how we put down the child, right? So slowly the child loses confidence that his original ideas are not valued, right? So that actually leads to diminishing the creativity. Whereas the Csikszentmihalyi, the scientist, he found that the functional adaptability, the idea of that, is probably one of the most important traits you can have to be creative. You should be able to, when we say think out of the box, means It just means that, like, you should be able to open to any ideas and sort of connect them together and come up with something. So, can you, there are lots of parents and teachers here, can you think of one thing that you can do to actually promote this idea of functional adaptability in our children? Because that's very extremely important. One example I already said, that not put down what the child says. For example, iron box, he calls it an aeroplane. No, no, no. Encourage that idea. Wow, look at the features. Yeah, part of this, the nose is actually shaped like an aeroplane, the nose of the aeroplane. Things like that. You can actually encourage that, such thinking. What else can you do? Or maybe even in schools, what can you be doing to actually promote this thought process of being adaptable with respect to the function of anything?
We can have more group activities wherein the child is exposed to more ideas. He will look at something in some way, but his peers might look at that same thing in different ways. And then he gets exposed to that, and then he understands that that is not the only way the thing has to be. And he is more adaptable to all those ideas also, and then he can go on, like he'll become more adaptable to all the ideas, and he'll think also that way. So more group activities should be there.
Okay.
You should not restrict the children to do this, do that, do this thing. You have to leave them free. They will get their own ideas. For example, my 3-year-old grandson, one day I was asking for a Euroclean. What is this? Euroclean. You have to clean for cleaning. Then how does it do? He works. And then he took a ball, plastic. And then he held it on the nozzle at the end. And it was levitating because of the pressure, the ball. 3-year-old, I don't know how even I wondered this ball was levitating in the air because of the pressure. He did his experiment. He was happy. So we never said, no, don't touch this Euroclean, you will get dust, you will get this, that. See?
We increase the observation power of our kids so that they can come up with new questions to ask that, like for example, how sun is getting so much light. So these kind of questions brings, like they can ask to us, even we also don't know, but we can think something and we can explain to them. So those kind of observation powers we need to increase.
Okay. So,
some activity when they're inside the house, they normally tend towards the things that they've already done. Okay, so if I ask them to draw something, it will always be the mountain and the sun, and there'll be a few trees. So normally what I ask them to do is go outside, see what you see, and see if you want to come and draw that, or just go check out the number of different leaves that are around the house, or just go check out all the models in the cars that are there, how are they different, how are they shaped. So it's always normally, like you said, observation, and then come back and see what you can do with that observation and incorporate it into what you're already doing.
I want to drive across is, again, going back to Csikszentmihalyi. He talked about how competition and creativity go against each other. Just the point that you made about being able to perform in this competitive world, I just want to point that it's not very easy to think of it that way, because we always think like the person who won the first prize is probably the best in terms of anything you can think of, but actually especially with growing children, developing minds, competition actually diminishes creativity. In fact, there have been many research studies that have been done in this area where the control group was told, okay, just do the Lego project or whatever, no time pressure, just create something. And another group was actually offered an incentive for actually coming up with the most creative solution and things like that. And believe it or not, the group which was not offered any incentive was, their products were considered to be, of course the judges, they didn't know which group was actually given the incentive, which group wasn't. And they found that the groups that were not given any incentives, their products were judged to be a lot more creative. And several research studies have been done to prove this. Now, this is quite, I mean, against what we do as a society, right? We always, I mean, when I say competition or when I say external pressures, it could be anything. It could be fear. I'm not going to give you this if you do something bad, right? That is because of fear of punishment or something, they might do something. Or for example, exams, to perform in the exams or to win a prize. And just think about your own activity here on the table. Initially, the first 10 minutes, probably you were thinking very freely. Then the time pressure set in, right? And then, like Smita here, she was talking about how at the end, like they just clamored and put together something because they had to use all the pieces. Intentionally, I had given that condition, use all the pieces, right? So just so that you will observe, at the end what came out, overall, probably it was good, but maybe if you're not under time pressure, it would have been a lot more creative. Okay? So, what can we do at home or at school to sort of make children less competitive? Because see, competition is already there intrinsically in them. They always compare against peers. But we sort of intensify that idea of competition by putting them through competitions and all kinds of things. So what can we do at schools or at homes? Maybe a couple of ideas we can just discuss. Sort of help our children be free thinking in a world, at least create an environment for them where they're not pressured. Okay? Sentence. I would deal with a child with only love and reason. Because when you actually deal with a child with all the love that you have, without sort of threatening them or even saying anything, they feel so secure in their hearts. And when they feel secure, they're not worried about anything else in the world. Their mind is free to be creative. The reason they cannot be creative when there are pressures is because half their mind is occupied by what will happen. Will that person win? Or what will my mother say? I mean, these are the thoughts that are there in our mind. And only half the mind is available for creative thinking. But when you give them all your love and make them feel secure, they're totally free to just, their mind is completely freed up to be creative. Just you try this at home. I mean, it has to become a habit. Immediately you cannot see the change in them. Over a period of few months, we change the way we talk to them and give them a lot of love and peace, and you see, just see how creative they are.
Today, we have been listening to eminent speakers deliberating in the areas of some wonderful and thought-provoking ways of inculcating science. These teaching techniques today morning, I'm sure, are going to be adopted by many teachers and parents here henceforth. We have Mrs. Nagavali J, Engineering Manager, Motorola Mobility, and the co-member of Women Business Council, to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello everyone. I'm standing in between of your lunch. So I'm going to keep it very short. There is a Sanskrit sloka which says Acharya Palamo Datta. I think it's very, very relevant to think about it now, which translates to say that only 1/4 of the knowledge can be given to a student by teacher. The other 1/4 is or she is going to learn through his own thinking, which really is required to have a lot of creative thinking. And another 1/4 he or she is going to acquire by discussions through by discussions with the co-students, and the rest of 1/4 is going to acquire over a period of time, that what we call as experience, hands-on experience. So that makes him the paripurna or the full knowledgeable person. So to this extent, I think there have been talks since morning. I'm really thankful. I stand here with a sense of deep gratitude towards all the panelists and speakers who have shared great insights into many aspects of learning, teaching, how a psychology of a student needs to be taken into consideration, and many insights I think are very thought-provoking. Thank you so much for all the speakers. And the other aspect is the participation. Of course, I think you have been wonderful participants, very, very open, looking at the activity that you have done. You have been very, very, and I think that has given rise to a lot of sharing of knowledge and thoughts. And thank you so much for your keen participation. And the facilities that are over here, I need to thank Ratan and team for making all these facilities being available for us so that we could have this event in a very, very happy manner. Thank you so much, Ratan, for that. And the team that we all put together this activity, past few weeks we have been working on this, though we have all our project deliverables. The team behind this, I'd like you all guys to come over here once, and my deep acknowledgement for all of you guys. A big round of applause for making it happen. You guys, this wouldn't have been possible. Thank you so much for all the effort that you have put in together. And I am standing here representing the whole team to thank you all for being here and participating in this. And